back to Tokyo now, where the athletes competing outside are dealing with a different challenge than the swimmers and gymnasts, some of them the most extreme heat of any Olympic Games. The temperatures have forced organizers to move some events. So are hotter Olympics a reality that athletes are just going to have to get used to? Our Kenneth Moton reports in from Tokyo.
It wouldn't be the Olympic Summer Games without the heat. But Tokyo 2020, an already unprecedented, delayed, pandemic-plagued Olympics, could be the hottest on record. Temperatures in Tokyo soaring to the mid to high 90s with about 80% humidity.
It's noon in Tokyo. Of course, I'm already feeling it. With the high humidity, it feels like 100 degrees. I don't know how the athletes do it. I just walked up the steps, and that was a lot. Whew.
From tennis to beach volleyball to track and field, and some thousands of athletes competing outside. That crushing heat, dangerous. A Russian archer fainted. A Spanish tennis player taken off the court in a wheelchair, suffering from heat stroke. Daniil Medvedev angrily telling an umpire he could finish his match, but wanted to know who would take responsibility if he died. The Russian tennis player later tweeting, still alive. Tennis great Novak Djokovic calling for a delay in the start time of matches. The International Tennis Federation agreeing to move competitions from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the interest of player health and welfare. That brutal heat stoking fears about the track and field events just getting underway.
The body is very good at preventing heat stroke. It will tell you to stop. But if you're in an Olympic competition, there's a temptation not to stop. If anyone does suffer heat stroke, we can deal with it really quickly and efficiently. However, the main aim is on prevention and mitigation.
What do you foresee as the
Olympics officials were recently asked about heat and climate change.
We cannot reduce the risk to zero, but we can minimize the risk. The response to the climate change is a regular course of work during the Olympic Games.
It was just 3 years ago in 2018 that Japan faced a brutal heat wave, killing more than 1,000 people and tens of thousands of others sickened. The scorching heat has climate scientists sounding the alarm that these extreme temps are not just the result of a hot summer, but signs of climate change.
We know that across the globe it is warming. Some places are warming faster than others. I would say Japan and Tokyo in particular are a microcosm for global warming. In fact, if anything, they probably give us a little more of a vision into what's coming in the future because they are probably ahead of the average warming curve.
The temperature of the host city climbing 2.86 degrees Celsius since the 1900s, more than 3 times as fast as the world's average. According to Climate Central, which is a nonprofit that analyzes and reports on climate science, daily summer highs in Tokyo exceeding 95 degrees Fahrenheit have become all too increasingly common.
With the warming environment also means you're going to have more humidity, which means it doesn't cool as much at night, and it doesn't give the body a chance to kind of relax or recover from the heat.
The concern so grave for the Olympic Games, a study titled Rings of Fire was published by the British Association of Sustainable Sport, warning that athletes are being asked more and more to compete in environments that are becoming too hostile for the human body. And it's not just the Tokyo Olympics extreme heat raising concerns. Last year's Australian Open, players survived scorching 110-degree temps. And in 2019, 24 athletes dropped out of the women's marathon in Doha from heat exhaustion. Some saying it's time the International Olympic Committee start taking climate change into account when selecting where and when the games will be played.
In future games, we need to be very mindful of where the games are held. Look at where the climate has been. Look at where the extremes have been. And then look at how they've been changing in the very recent past, so that we don't run into exceptionally hot conditions in some of the places that may be more apt to have them. Second, try not to have outdoor games or outdoor events that are during the peak heat of the day, when the sun is highest in the sky.
These satellite images show the heat island effect over Tokyo, a major urban city that is filled with concrete and very little green space.
There are places where you have a lot of heat trapping materials, things like asphalt and concrete. And so those materials help the city to heat up more than the surrounding areas during the day, and they also keep the city hotter at night. It's much harder for athletes to cool off in an urban environment, and particularly to get that cooling period they need to refresh themselves at night.
So what does this mean for future Olympic Games?
I would say we need to adapt and or mitigate to the warming climate. Whatever rules we've had in the past aren't necessarily going to work going forward. So we need to innovate. We need to think about new solutions. We need to take further precautions for the athletes so that they can perform at their best, okay? And we don't put them in a situation where exterior conditions are going to hamper their best efforts.
Iceland is sounding pretty good right about now. Kenneth Moton joins us from Tokyo, where it is Tuesday morning. Hopefully you've gotten a chance to cool off, because I imagine early part of the day it's not quite so hot just yet. But officials, of course, they've been planning for the heat for years. The heat in Tokyo expected to be so extreme. Tell us how they're handling the marathon.
Much cooler temperatures here in Tokyo right now because of the cloud cover and some rain that we're getting. And I love it, Lindsay, because it has been so hot here. And you mentioned that that move for the marathon runners up to Sapporo, Japan, which is 700 miles away. And Sapporo right now is about 5 degrees cooler than the temperature here in Tokyo as I speak. The International Olympic Committee trying to avoid images of athletes struggling in that blistering heat. So they made that switch back in 2019. Also, what we know is that the men and women's marathon will happen this weekend, back-to-back days on Saturday and Sunday, and have an earlier start time in the morning.
Yeah, because 26.2 miles in that extreme heat and humidity is tough. Kenneth, also some athletes have even apparently altered how they've trained for the Olympics because of the heat. What are they doing?
Yeah, athletes from countries like Canada with much cooler temperatures for most of the year, they trained in heat labs or heat chambers with temperatures of more than 100 degrees, 40% humidity. Also, we know that the U.S. women's soccer team trained at one of these facilities to try to get their bodies acclimated to the heat. We know that this heat can be very intense for athletes, so getting your body acclimated is very, very important in training for it. But get this, Lindsay, you remember those uniforms worn by Team USA, those Ralph Lauren uniforms worn by Team USA in the opening ceremony? Well, some of them came with cooling technology.
Oh, very neat. Ralph Lauren pulling out all the stops there. I'm sure that they appreciated that. Kenneth Moton, we appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.